Looks like everything is working. Today we're gonna do something different. So I figured I literally don't plan out streams at all. I don't do anything. I don't say like, oh, we're gonna talk about this today, or oh, we're gonna talk about that today. I think I'm gonna change that. I think I'm gonna like restrict it to one thing, and then if we get off topic, we get off topic. But um, I think it's gonna be more fun to talk about like one set thing because the way my interests work, it's usually like I'll be obsessed with one thing for a very long time and then I'll go to the next. So I feel like this is a good way to like kind of go with my weird obsessive nature about things sometimes. So that's what we're gonna end up doing. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So I have a few videos pulled up of basically just Jung, and hopefully they're good ones. I think they are. I think maybe we've gone through them at some point, but the thing about me is even if I've seen the video, I'm probably gonna have a different take. So um, we might have to repeat some of these things at some point. But again, as I begin to understand these things more and more, um, my explanation is gonna get better and better, and hopefully more concise. Hopefully, it's not more philosophical.
Reflections is the autobiography of Carl Jung.
No, let's not start with this. We're gonna start with man and his symbols. Throw 'em. Okay,
Man
perfect.
and His Symbols is the last work undertaken by Carl Jung before his death in 1961. He had never tried to popularize his work and refused several attempts by his
So the basis of this book is it's to be the most digestible of his works. What's up, Fluffy Kitty? I haven't streamed in a while. That's why you haven't seen me. Um, I streamed once, like last week, but that was it. I've just been really bad at it. I'm like, not that I'm burnt out, it's just like I don't know. It's do you ever like do things you like doing, but they just don't feel fun? Like it's that. Like I'm just like fed up with everything else. But everything is starting to wind down. So um, all I got to do is hunker down for the next few weeks, and then everything's gonna be good. So, but yeah, this is basically the attempt to um, write and make it digestible for the largest audience possible. The genesis of this book was basically Jung did a series of interviews with some, I think he was a British guy, some reporter, and basically the response was really, really good. People were like, "Oh my God, how have I never heard of this?" And he was asked to write a book about the stuff, simplify it, make it as easy and digestible as possible. And he refused because he didn't really want to go into that avenue. And it was only when he was getting like letters and people telling him that, the simple way he was speaking of these things changed his life or changed their lives, that he really set out to do this. And this book is not really what you would expect because it's kind of it's written by him in the first part of it, but the rest of it is his students. But I think this difference does a good job of explaining these different ideas in different contexts because when Jung writes, Jung is so smart sometimes that he thinks you understand things that don't really make sense, like some of the symbolism, some of the allegories that he'll talk about in the books. You're just like, what was that? And it's only upon like studying it for years and years and years when it starts to click. So it's always good to get a second opinion, especially coming from someone that's not as smart, someone that um, has more of a layman's interpretation. I feel you. Can't wait for you to be on a schedule going. Yeah, I'm trying to get better about it. These streams are obviously so much more fun than the other ones. The other ones are just like nonsense. But I think I need to do a good mix of both of them because these are more fun to do, but the other ones get more exposure to the channel, so it just turns more eyeballs to what I'm doing. Um, but yeah.
colleagues to persuade him to do so. At this moment, he had a dream. Instead of talking to the great scholars, he was directing himself to the general public. Jung was essentially advised by his own unconscious to reconsider an inadequate judgment he had made with the conscious part of his mind.
That's not actually true. It was everything that I said with the dream too. I forgot about that he had a dream as well, but it was he was getting a lot of like really, really good responses through letters, people telling him how inspiring his words were. And then he still wasn't convinced, and then he had this dream. I couldn't remember, but that was the story.
Principal aim of Man and His Symbols is an introduction to Jung's work and ideas. The last year of his life was devoted almost entirely to this book, finishing his own section only some 10 days before his final illness. Man and His Symbols is an examination of man's relation to his unconscious, emphasizing the importance of dreams in the life of the individual. The book was first published in 1964 and is divided into 5 parts, 4 of which were written by Jung's closest associates in the world of analytical psychology. In part 1, Approaching the Unconscious, Jung introduces the reader to
So the parts are broken up very, very well, but there's an overlap between all of them. I think Jung gives the most broad definitions and the most broad explanations. When I was reading this book, what I picked up on more than other books was the importance of dream analysis. Um, I really hadn't thought it to be as serious as Jung took it, and it was really cool to see just how important these things were, to see just how transformative your dreams can be. And basically, everything I thought about Jung wasn't really correct because I thought the biggest thing was attacking the shadow. The biggest thing was stopping repression and putting these influences into good things. But it's really about analyzing your dreams and finding the things that you're not observant about yourself. Because think about it like this, like it's always easier to give relationship advice when you're not in the relationship. But when you're in the relationship, you want to just keep going through it. You don't see beyond yourself. You can't see the whole situation because your emotions cloud the judgment. And this is really your dreams. This is what they can offer you. They can offer you like a third person perspective when you really analyze them, when you really break them down. Again, it's very difficult to do. A lot of the symbolism is probably going to be lost on you, but if you can get even a breadcrumb of information from a dream, you're going to get a very, very interesting enlightening experience.
several key ideas: symbols, dreams, and archetypes, which all arise from the unconscious. The language of the unconscious are symbols, and the means of communication are dreams.
Think about so if you don't understand the importance of symbols, think about it like this. What are words? Words are how you perceive feelings, emotions, images, and we all perceive these images pretty much the same, some differences, but when you see a cross, like right here, when you see a cross, you know what it means. You know it means Christianity. When you see the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon, whatever you want to call it. When you see this, you know Judaism. When you see this, you know Taoism. When you see this, you know Islam. Like there's an emotion, there's a depth with these symbols, and understanding what words and images and pictures and colors and understanding how these things affect us and how they hold not just a meaning but a feeling with it, and understanding that these symbols at all times are affecting us. Like I think the best example is like there's very well known symbols of hate that like when someone spray paints it on something or when somebody etches it on something, like you're just like, wow, this person's like a messed up person. Like think of how much weight these symbols can carry. And these are things that are around us at all times that are influencing us, that are making us feel things, and we're not observant of them. And it's the same thing with words. It's the same thing with the words we use about ourselves, the words we use about others. When you bring someone else down, what does that mean? That means that there is a inferiority complex with yourself. You're projecting that insecurity onto someone else, even if it's not directly related. No healthy conscious, no healthy mind is going to make fun of someone else.
Symbols are objects of the known world, hinting at something
What's up,
unknown. It
AMD?
is the
How's everything?
known expressing the life and sense of the inexpressible. Dreams are an integral and personal expression of the unconscious. They are just as real as any other phenomenon attaching the individual, due to vast amounts of complex data encountered in daily life.
So I don't know if he's going to explain the unconscious here. Um, but what the unconscious is put very simply, your conscious mind is what you need for your day to day. So like tying your shoes, driving a car, the information related to your job, or specifically like the project you're working on right now. But every piece of information that you've ever absorbed is somewhere in your unconscious, and you really can't access it, but what this means and why this is significant is that these things are affecting you without you knowing it. And these things usually rise up in your dreams. Like your dreams can access every single memory you've ever had, every single experience you've ever had, every single piece of information that you've ever absorbed is somewhere in your unconscious. And these things are all lying dormant and peeking up above the surface when you're dreaming. So this is why you get fantastical abilities to analyze what's really wrong with yourself through your dreams. It's because the things that are actually bothering you are surfacing, and you won't realize it unless it just pops in your head. And this is, oh, what is it called? Jung called it active imagination. It's think of active imagination as the phenomena when you're just sitting there and you remember like a terrible memory and you don't know why you're remembering it, but you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like that's active imagination. Experiencing things that you once experienced. Like there's a reason why you're feeling that. Like you're either trying to get over that one guilt, that one instance is keeping you and holding you back, or you're going to experience something similar that's almost like a synchronistic event.
Human understanding must
Is this
create a
making sense?
method of simplifying the concepts. The limitations of consciousness forces certain concepts of our daily life to become subliminal and develop part of the
I don't think people accept these ideas because they're very poetic ideas, very symbolic ideas. And people like rigidity, people like being able to easily classify things, and it like almost comforts a lot of people. But you don't really get to the truth through comfort. You don't get to the truth through the easy solutions. There's always just things that are beyond our comprehension. And if we can just feel what it is, usually that's enough to guide us in the right direction. You know what I mean? Like when you read a poem, what makes a poem so expressive? What makes a poem so good? It's simply just its ability to evoke emotion that's beyond comprehension. Like there's things that words can't express. There's feelings that just come to us. And this is what Jungian psychology is about. It's about understanding these forces that are controlling us that we can't quite put a finger to.
unconscious psyche, and without us realizing it, they influence the way in which we react to people.
When you really break it down, Jung was just like a mystic. He was like a Gnostic Christian, and he just kind of packaged all this stuff in the form of psychology. It's kind of funny. Like if you read the Red Book, Jung literally reads like Crowley. It's like very, very weird to read something from Jung that's the furthest thing from science.
People and events. Jung observes that primitive man was much more governed by his unconscious instincts than modern man, who has become too rational. This one-sidedness has created a dissociation in the psyche of modern civilization. Using the symbolic images of dreams, Jung found that the unconscious was conveying crucial information to help the entire psyche reach a balance which the conscious attitude has reached.
When you're too focused on the conscious, when you're too focused on controlling your mind, controlling your ideas, it creates a repression. And think about it like Newtonian physics. Every action has an equal but opposite reaction. And anytime you do something, there's going to be some sort of resistance built up. There's going to be a springboard that comes back. And sometimes it's not expressed literally in that moment, but it could be the buildup of years. Think about every single time you get cut off at and you're driving. Are you angry because you're cut off? Are you angry because someone inconvenienced you for maybe 5 seconds? Are you angry because they almost caused an accident, but you're completely fine? Or are you really just angry at your life? Are you feeling emotions that you repressed and you didn't let yourself express, when your boss tells you to do something and you know, you're like, why do I have to do this? Like you're just gonna this isn't gonna get used, no one's gonna look at this, or someone demeans you, or relationship breaks up, or something doesn't go your way. Like all of these feelings of anger are pushed down until like they come out in bad moments, and it's usually at the worst time possible. It's usually when you lose all control that these forces just come out from their dormancy, and it's a very scary thing to see. And this is literally what you see when you drink alcohol. Like you could be with the most normal, mild-mannered person ever, but if they drink and they just go, it's because they lost that ability to control it. And when it's gone, it's a reckless and dangerous force. And it's not just in these heated moments too. It can also just spring up like trying to think of a good example. It could just spring up out of the blue, though. It could, in some way, affect your actions. It could make you petty when you should be just understanding. It could make you angry when you really should just be calm. It's really the bane of your existence.
repressed. Dreams are the essential message carriers from the instinctive to the rational parts of the human mind. Their interpretation enriches the poverty of consciousness, reviving the forgotten language of the instincts. While the unconscious symbolic language in a dream is specific to an individual, it continues to rest on a bedrock layer of shared psychic material across all humans. Jung calls this the collective unconscious. This is
So the best explanation for the collective unconscious is the collective experience of humanity. Some people believe it's like a force that interacts at all times. And this is what you hear when you hear like Christ consciousness, or you talk to really creative people. They'll talk about, oh, this didn't come from me. This sprung from something else. This sprung from something much deeper. Some people think there's like a lineal collective consciousness, like an entire race or an entire gender or this or that. There's some evidence of that, but I think the most convincing and the most compelling is, think about a riot. When people are rioting, it's usually a protest, and then someone throws a chair into something, somebody starts fighting, something happens, and these mild-mannered people immediately turn into violent individuals. And it's like, what is that aside from the crowd and the collective consciousness taking over these group of people? What is it aside from that? Think about war. When people are at war, individually these people are very mild mannered, but the group mentality makes them brave warriors. It's very hard to explain, but it's very easy to understand when we use these examples.
is where archetypes are found. These are inherited experiences of human life, representing universal patterns of emotional and mental behavior. They have been ingrained in man since time immemorial. However, archetypes cannot be fully interpreted if one does not consider the whole life situation of the individual. They come to life only if one takes into account their relationship with oneself. The one thing we refuse to admit is that we are dependent upon powers that are beyond our control.
So what he's talking about here is what I was talking about earlier. Everything that controls you, all of your limiting beliefs, everything that you don't like about yourself is just a result of stimulus that you don't remember. Maybe it was your teacher didn't call on you when you were a kid. Maybe it was you got an answer wrong and everyone laughed at you. Maybe it was your parents didn't tell you that they appreciated you. And you like, we all have these weird things that hold us back. And it's we're being guided by these forces, and most of the time we can't recognize it. Every once in a while it'll click. Every once in a while, when you're like deep in meditation or you're deep in just being zoned out in outer space, the memory will come and you'll be like, this is probably why I'm insecure. This is probably why I want everyone to like me. This is probably why I do this or I do that. And it'll make sense. But like these moments are very fleeting. And when you have these things, you have to be very cognizant of, I'm remembering this for a reason. What is this reason? And when you start thinking about these things, when you start breaking them down, even if they weren't big moments in your life, I think it's something like, I think it's something that you need to really be aware. Like, if I'm remembering this, I'm remembering for a reason. Because when you get memories, it's always for a reason. There's always something that is going to occur. Like, I was literally thinking about a video from a guy that I thought he had an opinion that was interesting the other day. This is the weirdest thing. It's like 2 days ago, I was like, I wonder what this guy's up to. I haven't seen him on my feed in forever. The next day, I see like five of his videos. I don't look up anything related to him. It just appears. And it's like, weird stuff like that will begin to happen when you really start to become conscious. And the more you look out for these things, the more they appear. It's like what is it? It's like confirmation bias. So this is why like some people get really into like conspiracies, or they get really into astrology, or they get really into honestly any sort of ideology. It's because the more you start to notice things, the more they just appear, the more you'll start to tie the dots, the more you'll start to notice things that you wouldn't notice otherwise. And it's a very weird phenomena. Like I'm someone that shifts beliefs a lot. I'm someone that will be really into something for a while and then I'll get bored with it and then I'll, learn something new and try to expand who I am, try to expand my perspectives. And every time I like shift from one thing to another, those ideas kind of just stop appearing. They stop reoccurring. But when I'm in the midst of studying these things, they're just boom, 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 boom. Like every time I used to have a dream, I would immediately analyze it. I'd immediately be like, I know what that means. Now, if I have a dream, sometimes I'm like, what does that mean? Sometimes I'm like, well, that made a whole lot of sense. Now I know what I need to work on. Now I need to know what's bothering me. Now I know the things that I have to start doing in my life. Like it's very weird how this phenomena works, but
is that we are dependent upon powers that are beyond our control. In Part 2, Ancient Myths and Modern Man, Joseph L. Anderson illustrates the appearance of several archetypal patterns in ancient mythology. For modern man, these appear somehow irrelevant to our current society due to the development of the conscious ego. However, many collective celebrations such as Christmas and Easter are ripe with unconscious symbolic content.
when you start learning symbols like very well, when they start clicking, I don't know how to explain this aside from like you can study symbols, you can study like Jungian psychology, you can study alchemy, you can study all this stuff, and then you realize that every single religion, every single Eastern philosophy has the same exact symbolism, has the same exact numeral. Oh my God, they have the same numbers in different rituals. They have the same. I mean, there's 12 zodiacs. There's 12 apostles. There's 12 Jungian archetypes. There's 12 zodiacs. Like, why are these numbers reoccurring? Why are these things in everything? It's almost like these things are just universal.
That we rarely recognize intellectually within the ego. One of the most common archetypal motifs is the hero myth. The hero descends into darkness to slay dragons and other monsters, usually winning the battle. The essential function of the hero myth.
This is if you've read the Red Book. I doubt anyone that's watching this has. Um, when you read the Red Book, there's a part of it where Jung says you have to go to the depths of hell to accept your darkness. When you accept your darkness, when you accept the devil within you, then you can rise up and overcome it, because the recognition that you're perfect doesn't lead you anywhere, but the recognition that you have faults, the recognition that you're prone to certain things, now you know, now you're aware, now you can tame these impulses, now you can put this energy into something good, but it's only upon recognition and what's the word? Consolidating this dark side with your good side, where you can rise above and become something greater.
Myth is the development of the individual's ego consciousness, his awareness of his own strengths and weaknesses, in a manner that will equip him for the arduous tasks which life confronts him. Most people are unaware of their shadow, the dark side of their personality. The hero, on the contrary, must realize that
So,
the shadow exists.
hold on, that's about it. Oh my. So, all the shadow is the things that you repress, the things that you don't let be shown to the world. So, think about it in this way: every day we cater to the people around us. We take away parts of our personality because we'll be viewed as weird. Certain things aren't socially acceptable. Like, think about a dress code in an office. Nobody really wants to wear a suit unless you're an absolute weirdo. It's not comfortable. You lose circulation. It's stiff. The tie's annoying. Like, nobody really wants to do these things, but we all make sacrifices each day to kind of fit in, to be part of the world, to earn our bread, to provide for our family. Like we all make these sacrifices, and it might not be a big deal in the moment, but like think about doing this for a lifetime. Think about making sacrifices day after day after day after day. Like you may be living authentically 95%, but that 5% every single day really adds up over time and it creates a shadow. It creates a side of yourself that's not being expressed. And what you don't express is really going to cause you issues. It's really going to cause you problems. Think about the people who never got attention as a child. Maybe it didn't hurt them in the moment, but for the rest of their lives, they're narcissists. For the rest of their lives, they have to be liked by absolutely everybody. For the rest of their lives, they need to prove to the world how great they are. And it's like these fundamental character flaws derive from the shadow. They derive from what we're not getting. And usually the real solution to the shadow is anything externally that you seek, you're seeking from yourself. So if you're seeking external validation from others, what you're really seeking is you valuing yourself. You think that through other people, you will become valuable in your own eyes, but you just have to give that to yourself. Anything you're looking for in others, you have to give to yourself first, and then everything else kind of fades into the background. That's the real secret of becoming a whole individual. Like anything you want, look inward. Anything that you're looking for, anything that you're desiring should be internal characteristics, not external characteristics. There are people with billions and billions of dollars that are more insecure than you and me. I mean, look in the news that should be apparent. Jeff Bezos just bought $1 billion yacht. Like, do you think like his wedding's gonna cost $1 billion? Like, what is that aside from ego? What is that aside from vanity? What is that aside from hubris? Maybe, maybe there could be a justification. Maybe it could be like, well, I just want my wife to be a princess. But like, you're telling me that you couldn't have spent less money. You're telling me that that's not about the spectacle. I don't know about that. And I think it's very weird to me how we don't understand that every external desire we're looking for is really misplaced internal desires. You want to be this kind of person. You want to be that kind of person. It's much easier to change who you are than to change the world. In fact, it's impossible to change the world. It's only possible to change yourself. And that's the real key to all of these ideas. The real key is that the shadow is built up because you're not expressing yourself. Find joy, find purpose through creativity. Find joy, find purpose through expressing the parts of yourself that never get to go out into the world. Um, I think a real big issue with a lot of young men is they don't have an outlet for that aggression. They don't have an outlet for the willingness to test themselves on the battlefield. And like, I think one of the greatest things that's happening in the world today is people going into martial arts, people going into jujitsu or kickboxing or starting to train MMA, stuff like that. Like, that's one of the greatest things because think about it. If they weren't getting their ass kicked in the gym, they'd be getting their ass kicked on the streets and people would be getting seriously hurt. Like there's just a part of a young man that wants to test himself physically against others and it's not being fulfilled. And it could be fulfilled in a good way where you're learning skills, where you're learning self-confidence, where you're learning to be a better combatant, where you're challenging yourself and you're challenging others and making friends along the way and having almost like a cathartic experience, almost a meditative practice or you can do it in just a violent way. It's there's always a good way to express what's going unexpressed, and it's finding these things in our lives. And Jung called this, I'm getting very in the weeds of things. I don't think we're gonna get to the rest of the video, but Jung called this the individuation process. So the individuation process is basically finding out who you are. And it's only done through trial and error. There's no simple, you know, do this, do that, do this. Like there's no easy way for me to tell you who you are. You have to tell yourself who you are. To be honest, I don't know who I am. I try to find it every single day and I feel like I get closer every single day. But the second that you get closer, the second that you get a step into that middle, that circle of your heart, you realize there's another layer and then another layer and then another layer. It's like one gigantic onion that you're just trying to get to the center of. I mean, I feel like I keep making Shrek references, but think about it like there's just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. And the joy and the beauty of this is you will never find out your true self but the journey itself is so worth it. Like you will never be 100% happy. You'll never be 100% content. But it's the pursuit of this. It's the joy that you find in this experience that makes the most rewarding life. that gives you everything you could ever ask for. That gives you more love, more acceptance, more happiness than anything the world could give you. I feel like I went off on a real tangent there.
and come to terms with his destructive powers if he is to defeat the dragon. Before the ego can triumph, it must master and assimilate the shadow. This heroic sacrifice represents the death and rebirth of an individual. The need for hero symbols arises when the conscious mind needs assistance in some
So what I've been talking about, I disagree with Jung on this. Jung believes in confronting your unconscious and accepting it. I go more of an Eastern mindset. I go of destroying it. So there's a little bit difference in this. It might seem the same, but it's a little bit different. Um, Jung would use various practices such as individuation. He would use therapy. He would use early on to his practice, he used hypnosis, dream analysis, stuff like that. I like to use a lot of meditation. To me, I think it's a real cheat code to change your conscious mind, to change the things you believe about yourself, to get over a lot of the stimulus, and it slowly can begin to rewrite your unconscious. So I like doing it that method. I like doing I don't know if affirmation is the right thing, but like telling myself I'm capable of something. It's a really good hack for creativity. Like if you want to be creative, you first have to believe that you can do it. Because if you don't believe you can do it, you're going to self-sabotage. So like before I film a video, before I do a stream, like I'm in my head, I'm like, I already have this amount of subscribers. I already have this. I already have that. Like I'm trying to think like someone who has the success I'm looking for. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to act. I'm trying to embody that because if I embody the lack of success I have right now, it's not going to be a good stream. I'm going to constantly bring myself down. I'm constantly be negative. I'm going to be like, oh, why don't you look at the chat? Why don't you look at this? Why don't you, like, you know what I mean? It's like it's never good to aim for what you have. It's always good to imagine that you have more. And when you think from the end, this is the true creativity hack. This is the true way to find different aspects of yourself that you didn't know were there. Um, William James said it. He perhaps said it best. You have to first think of it in your mind before you can hold it in your hand. It's one of my favorite quotes ever, and it just talks about the nature of ideas. It talks about the nature of creating something great. Like it always has to be thought of. And it has to be thought of in not just a plain manner. It has to be thought of in the manner that I can do this, that I deserve this. Like for so much of my life, like I knew I could do something, but I didn't feel like I deserved it. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I still doubt myself, but like the moment that you feel like you deserve everything that you're dreaming for is the moment they're going to get it. But so many people don't believe that they're worthy. So many people don't give themselves the chance. And it's like we're all defeating ourselves day after day after day. It's just a really sad reality when you start to realize these things. But the light at the end of the tunnel is that you can change this. Like anything that you've done up until now doesn't matter because if you just change your ideas, if you change the beliefs you have, and you extrapolate this out on a long enough scale, you're going to succeed. You're going to win. It's just really that simple.
task that it cannot
What's up,
accomplish
Hypnonio? How's
unaided
everything?
or without drawing on the sources of strength that lie in the unconscious mind. In Part 3, The Process of Individuation, Marie-Louise von Franz describes the process by which consciousness and the unconscious have learned to live at peace and to complement one another. This is known as individuation and is perhaps the most important part of the whole.
Think about the yin yang. Think about the white part of the circle with dark in it, the dark part of the circle with white in it. Think about that. It's a balance between the two. It's a balance between your unconscious and your conscious. I think people like to resist the impulses they have. People like to resist the things that they feel. They like to resist their emotions. It's not about denying any of these things. It's about channeling them into good. Like emotions are a great thing. Like think about every breakup that you went through. Every time you had a breakup, what it meant was that you had to face the harsh reality that like the relationship you were in, the love you felt wasn't going to work out. And some people it breaks them down, but for other people, like it's the greatest period of transformation in your life. Like every time I've been through a breakup, it's made me so much stronger. I found depths of strength that I never thought were there. And I started to realize things about myself. I started to realize that like no matter how bad this person hurt me, no matter how bad this person treated me, I had a hand in that. I had a role in that. And if I don't want to feel this again, then I have to do something. And it's only through these awful experiences that you can really break yourself down so you can build yourself back up. Like, when are you ever going to realize your bad characteristics if they don't come back to haunt you? If they don't rear its ugly head and be the destruction of your happiness? It's like, I think we can face the things in our lives and like always come out on the better side, but it's always just spinning it and flipping on its head.
Whole book addressing the essence of Jung's philosophy of life. Man becomes whole when and only when the process of individuation is complete. If a person devotes himself to individuation, he frequently has a positive, contagious effect on the people around him. Jung interpreted around 80,000 dreams in his life, and he discovered that they seem to
Some of the dreams he interpreted if you want to read some of the funny dreams, they're in, I think I queued up this video. I don't know if we're gonna get to it. Memories, dreams, reflections. There's some really weird dreams that he analyzes in here.
follow a pattern. If one watches one's dreams over a period of years, one will see that certain content emerge, disappear, and then turn up again. The slow process of psychic growth is the process of individuation. It is driven by the unconscious, which is the guiding force of psychic development. The ego acts as a bridge with the outer world and has the capacity to bring the unconscious out.
I don't think he defined the ego, but the ego in relation to Jungian psychology is the ego is very much aligned with the conscious mind. Think of the ego, this is the way I like to define it, is who the world tells you you are. So the ego is the combination of your status, of your job, of the friends you have, of the experiences you've had, of the respect you have. And that really goes to form who you project yourself into the world. So some people have more of a conscious effect on their ego. Some people are better able to walk into a room and be confident, even though they really don't have the right to be. Other people are destroyed by their ego. It's very weird, but ego always in the end can bring even the best of us down. I mean, if you look at Alexander the Great, it was hubris that led to his downfall. If you look at Caesar, Caesar could have been remembered as the greatest general that Rome ever had, but he wanted more. He wanted to be more than just a temporary dictator. He wanted to be a permanent dictator, and basically it led to his downfall. Really, any great man you can just look to and show that their ego is ultimately the downfall, because ego is like ego is just something that can never be satisfied. It's something that always needs more. Think of Elon, think of Bezos. These are people that literally have done it all in the business world, but now they need to conquer the stars. Now they need to compete with each other to see who's the first to get to Mars, or, this or that. Like, there's all these weird things that ego will make you do. It's something that will never be satisfied. And um, this goes to the nature, like anytime you have an ego, you have a shadow. Ego is the creation of this world, and it creates a equal but opposite darkness inside of our heads.
Elements into consciousness. The source of the dreams is what Jung calls the self, the totality of the whole psyche, which is different from the ego or consciousness. It is often represented by mandalas. In order to have a relationship with the self archetype, one must face and assimilate one's shadow and the anima or animus. The anima and animus are the
That's just the opposite gender. There's Think about it like this. You have a set amount of traits, and the traits that you don't have, you associate with the opposite gender just from birth, usually. So a lot of this is formed by your relationship with your mother. This is where you see Freud's Oedipus complex kind of explained. But I think it's much, much deeper than that, because I don't think it's necessarily tied to sexuality like Freud did. I think it's much more overarching, and basically, the anima can be thought of. I'm just going to use the anima because it's easier, because I understand it much better, because this is what I deal with. Um, Animus is similar, but it's just the female has the male aspect of it. But the anima is just the angelic feminine form that is shaped by every experience you have with woman. And basically, if you have a bad relationship with the anima, you're going to have bad relationships with women. It's really that simple. And um, this is what leads like. Have you ever like seen like the savior complex or the person with the overbearing mother who basically tries to find someone that will like police them like their mother did? Like it's very weird how you basically end up marrying someone with the same relation with the same kind of traits as your mother, and it's because of this. It's because that form in your mind is identified with those characteristics, and whoever has that form the best is going to basically create that perfect image in your mind. But the thing about the anima as well is the anima is also part of ourselves. Like the traits we look for in our partners are shaped by the anima, but we can never be satisfied by those traits because the traits are things we need to give to ourselves. For like so for me, like a lot of my relationships broke down because I didn't feel like I got the support. I didn't feel like someone would cheer me on no matter what. And the truth is, like, I can never ask for that from someone else because I need to give that to myself first. If I can't give that to myself first, why do I deserve it from someone else? And that other person has their own issues. They have their own problems. They have their own things they have to deal with. And how dare I ask them to be perfect? How dare I ask them to give me something I won't even give myself? And that's the truth of it. That's the truth of why most relationships break down because if you don't understand that the anima is yourself, if you don't understand the things that you're looking for are things you need in yourself, they can just be supplemented by someone else. They could be in addition to what you already give yourself. Like you need to be a whole individual before you can give yourself to someone else. As Osho said, love is openness. It's the ability to be completely open, completely exposed to someone else.
Conscious sexual aspect of one's personality. The anima is the personification of all feminine psychological tendencies in a man's psyche. It is the woman within, while the animus is the man within. A positive integration of these archetypes can put one's mind in tune with the right inner values.
So, but very simply, for men to come to grips with the anima, they have to accept their more feminine characteristics. They have to be more forgiving of themselves. They have to be more supportive of themselves. They have to be more kind to themselves. They have to embrace this kindness and embrace these traits. And for women, they have to, you see this with a lot of young women, especially like they want to have a career, they want to, work whatever job, they want to, move up the corporate ladder, and they're afraid to get into relationships because they feel like they have to forego that side. They feel like they have to give up that masculine side to them. So the truth is, they just have to give that feminine side to the other person. That's the secret. And when you realize that, it's just such a breakthrough that when it clicks, it's just like damn, that's why all my relationships broke up because I was at war with myself. It wasn't the other person. I was at war with myself. A house divided can never win, as right? There's a Lincoln quote.
And thereby opening the way into more profound inner depths. This allows an individual to be more conscious of the activity of the unconscious in daily relationships with others and the world itself, avoiding the ego to become inflated and being more authentic to yourself. In Part 4, Symbolism in the Visual Arts, Aniela Jaffe demonstrates man's recurring interest in the symbols of the unconscious. The visual arts delight us by a constant appeal.
So I think this is Van Gogh, right? Um, it doesn't matter. My example is the same, but you can tell. Does do these shapes, do these patterns look like something from a healthy conscious? The answer is no. And art can be a therapeutic thing or it could be a destructive thing. There's two aspects to everything. There could either be destruction or creation. And this type of art is more depressive. It's less organized. It's less form. It's not the likes of the Mona Lisa. When you look at the Mona Lisa, you look at something so perfectly crafted. You look at something that can only come from a healthy conscious, can only come from a extremely focused mind. And um, you look at this, and I mean, it's a great work of art, but it's not something that you want to do because if you're drawing stuff like this, you might cut off your ear. Um, but it's I don't even know how to explain this. You could tell by the shapes, you can tell by the lines that this is a very scrambled unconscious. Think about to quote Jordan Peterson, clean your room. Um, the world you live in, the things you create, the expressions that you leave indications on the healthiness of your conscious. So somebody that can draw very perfect and aesthetic forms is going to be someone that's very, very healthy consciously. Whereas when you have more scrambledness, when you're more confused, when there's a lot more going on and it's jumbled and it's a mess. Think of the people that don't clean the room. Think of the people that don't do their laundry. Don't look over there. I have to do my laundry. But it's like they're generally not well put together. There's generally other things going on. And again, this is the pot calling the kettle black right now, but this is how you know when you're in a stressful period. This is how you know when you're not completely on it, when you're not completely organized, when you're not completely healthy.
To the unconscious, the artist may be seen as the spokesman of the spirit
So look at this. Like you can tell, like just look at the lines. Even this is a little um kind of all over the place. But if you look at the brushstrokes, you can just judge the healthiness of a conscious through the brushstrokes. I know I sound crazy right now saying that, but when you understand that symbols, forms, shapes, all of these things are an indication and an expression of something beyond what we can even understand. Think of like your mannerisms. Think of your body language. Like you can tell a lot about a person by their body language, by the way they carry themselves. It's the same thing with writing. It's the same thing with art. It's the same thing with any sort of song or dance. You can tell what this person feels.
of his age. He is
It's
controlled
just
by
like being
forces of
receptive
the
to it.
unconscious. People don't have ideas, ideas have.
People don't have ideas. Ideas have people. I think this is a very, very important idea. Okay. The greatest works of art are not conscious. The greatest works of art are pure stream of consciousness, are pure action. Like there might be focus involved, but there's nothing in the person's mind. It's very much through feeling. It's very much through pure presence, pure awareness. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if we have any like poets or artists in the chat, but the greatest things I've ever written, I don't know what the next word is going to be. Like I'll write poems that'll be like, how did how did I write this? And it's like, are those my ideas or did I tap into something more? Did I tap into some force, something inside of me? Maybe it's something inside all of us. Maybe it's everything I tapped into. Depends what you believe, what I tapped into, but you know,
People. Jaffe takes us through a history of art from the lens of analytical psychology. She states that three central symbolic motifs are represented continuously throughout human history: the stone, the animal, and the circle. Humans began to arrange stones and carve them to indicate the divinity and spirit found in the stone itself. Animals have been continuously documented through cave paintings as adornment or objects of veneration. The animal motif is symbolic of man's instinctual nature. The acceptance of our animal nature is essential if wholeness is to be achieved. Humans across time and cultures have always used the circle as a symbol of wholeness. Jung equated this symbolically with a representation.
think about it like this. What's more pleasing to your eye? We can go the Freudian psychology take as well. What's more pleasing to your eye than a circle? Think about a square. Have you ever eaten off a square plate? This is going to lead me into my next point. If you've ever eaten off a square plate, doesn't it just not feel right? And it has to do with forms, it has to do with symbols, it has to do with how your mind observes things. A circle is very pleasing because there's no rigidity to it. Your mind isn't like rigidity. Your mind isn't like strict rules. It doesn't like to be just constrained in any way. And the perfect representation of this idea is through a circle. The perfect representation is through a completely perfect circle. Like it's just very pleasing to your mind. It's very stress free. The Freudian psychology take is that a circle looks like a breast, and that's why we eat from circular plates because it's basically replicating us breastfeeding. This is very weird when you think about it, but when you notice it, it's the same thing if someone like chews on their strings or someone chews on a pen or someone smokes a cigarette or smokes a cigar, Freud thought it was symbolic of the what is it? Like breastfeeding. There's another word for that I was trying to use, but like the breastfeeding circuit of our brain. And it's very weird when you think about it because there's some truth to it that it's like you didn't get enough attention from your mother, so it's like you trying to return to that state. Some people, I think this was Freud. I don't know if this was Freud himself. I don't know if opium was around, but basically people were saying that these well-respected psychologists, not just me, they were saying that opium was like a return to your mother's womb, like the warmness and the happiness and the bliss. That's why it's so addictive, because it returns you to like a child, like an infant state. Although that was very interesting, maybe that's wrong, but symbolically it makes a lot of sense.
of the self. In turning to modern art, Jaffe argues that it reflects the dissociated nature of human age, consequence of an extremely rational age, retreating from reality. In the final chapter, Symbols in an Individual Analysis, Jolanda Jacobi presents an individual case of a successful analysis. However, it must be pointed out that there is no such thing as a typical Jungian analysis. There can't be, because every dream is a private and individual communication. In other words, every Jungian analysis is unique.
Jung was very different from other people because you look at people like Freud, they liked to classify things. Freud liked to group everything in as sexual, and if you couldn't find the sexual connection, it was psychosexual. Jung was much more broad. He was much more individualistic because he realized that when it comes to matters of the mind, everyone has their own experiences, everyone has their own things that they view in a certain lens, and you must first understand this lens before you can understand them because what hurts me might uplift you. What offends me might be very pleasing to you. And it's only when we can get beyond our own egos and observe people from their own eyes where we can help them out, where we can guide them in the right direction. So, this is what Jung looked to do in his Red Book. He looked to get beyond himself. And this is where you see Jung basically struggling with his own internal, I don't know if demons is the right word, but his own internal struggles and overcoming them. And he credits that really, really, really rough period of his life to the greatest work that he's ever done because, unlike Freud, Jung really resolved a lot of his issues. He really dealt with a lot of the things that bothered him his whole life. And, because of this, he was better able to handle his patients. You see, with a lot of Freudian patients, they didn't really get the best treatment because Freud didn't treat them like people. He treated them like his patients. And it's an individualistic approach and a not a one size fits all that gives the best sort of treatment to especially matters of the mind. I think it's a little different when it comes to um, anatomy. I think it's a little different when it comes to stuff like that. But when it comes to the mind is so unique and it's its own world, it's its own universe that every individual has to be treated differently in these sorts of matters.
It is the case study of Henry, an introverted 25-year-old engineer. With his logical mind, he represses everything irrational, giving way to an unbalanced psyche. He also has an
This is what you see with like a lot of conservatives, a lot of evangelicals. Everything's so rational that it creates like a madness of sorts. Again, it's not good to be too far one side. It's not good to be too far the other side. So, not to say that liberals have it easy, but like they have the exact opposite result. But like you see this in a lot of like very rigid individuals. For a lot of my life, I was super rigid. I'm a Taurus, so of course I am. I'm literally Taurus everything. So I'm like the most rigid person you'll meet. So for a lot of my life, like I was just struggling with things that didn't make sense. I was struggling with things that were more interpretive. And it's only when you drop this resistance where everything can kind of come and come full circle. But I mean, it's something that you have to work past. It's something that you have to work through. So if you're someone that's very expressive, you have to try to be more logical. You have to try to see the logical side of things. You have to see it for the plain numbers, the bare bones. You can't take emotional arguments into things. And it's only through balancing the logical with the illogical that we can really come to wholeness. Again, these ideas are really the same when it comes to um, the big picture, when you break it down into individual, it becomes much more complex because you have to first understand yourself before you can help yourself. You have to understand what you um, really lean towards, what your biggest um, strengths are, because the biggest strengths are also your biggest weaknesses. When you're too reliant on something, then it's building up an inferiority somewhere else. And this is really, I mean, I'm trying to like analyze myself live, so it's like kind of hard, but when I think back, like some of my biggest struggles were because I was so regimented, and I would, wake up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym, and then I do this, and then I train jujitsu, then I do all my work, and I do this, and then I do it all again the next day. And there was like no time for fun. There was no time for any sort of enjoyment. There was no time for any sort of reflection. And I was just pure logical, pure logical, pure logical. And I was like, there's no fun in that. There's no fun on the extremes. It's the integration that allows you to appreciate the best of both worlds.
Extreme dependence on his mother. He is stuck and unable to move forward in life due to a continual tension with instinct and his anima. Over the course of his analysis and dream interpretation, he is able to explore the unconscious and reach a level of maturation that is mirrored in the outer reality of his life, as he successfully overcomes his complexes and is able to marry and move out of his family home, becoming a self-sufficient and responsible adult. This strengthening of the ego completes the first half of the individuation process. The second half of one's life consists of the establishment
I don't know if ego is the right word because I don't like the word ego. Um, anyway,
of a right relationship between the ego and the self. For Jung, the only real adventure remaining for each individual is the
I think the ego is something that comes from repression. Maybe it's just the way I'm using the word. Maybe it's the way I'm thinking of it.
exploration of
I
his
don't like what he's
own
saying here, though.
unconscious. The ultimate goal of such a search is the forming of a harmonious and balanced relationship with the self.
Okay. Harmonious and balanced relationship with yourself. That is a beautiful statement. That is what we're all looking for. Think about it like this: when you have desires, when you have wants, when you have needs, they're basically drugs. You need more of it, and it'll never be satisfied. It's when you need nothing. It's when you accept who you are. It's when you accept everything about yourself, flaws and all, where you will be eternally happy. Everything else you seek is just getting you further away from the true goal of happiness. Um, I love how it takes me an hour to get through a 10-minute video. Um, I guess we'll go through these two videos hopefully tomorrow, but I still have to make dinner. So I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Thank you guys so much for having fun with me. I will catch you guys in the next one.